Welcome, everybody. This is a beautiful day God has given us. Welcome, TJK channel. As I promised to you, we bring you transformational people who have done amazing work in the world, whether it is business, family, or social work or social impact work. We have taken you through different continents. You've met different people, different ages, different backgrounds. Today, I'm excited and blessed and honored to host my friend Ed. Ed will tell you about himself. Welcome, Ed. Thank you for making time all the way from Israel to connect with us here and to inspire people. Please tell us
First of all,
about yourself.
thank you so much. Thank you so much and as you know, it's mutual. I think we both hit it off from the first moment. So the pleasure is absolutely mutual.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Ed, your background, your family, and how we all end up here.
Okay. I try to be brief, but it's up to you to lengthen the conversation or to shorten. You're allowed to do both.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm originally, my formal name is Edward, the French way, Edouardy, because I'm born in Belgium. And although I'm born in the Flemish part of Belgium, it was then fashionable to be a little bit, the French had a little bit culturally some more international impact. So therefore the formal way is Edouard, but of course nobody knows to pronounce it. Edouard.
Oh.
As I was born there, my parents were born in, my mother is from Holland, my father was born in Warsaw, but then both of them moved to Antwerp from different times, of course, one before the war, one after. And interesting to just a little bit background, Antwerp is a merchant city. It's a very famous harbor. So it was it had an international impact from that point of view as a trade hub, but of course also Belgium has a very different connotation also, that it was the little private playground of King Leopold II from Belgium.
Yes.
He, I think, more or less from all the colonial powers, he mistreated people at the worst level in Congo, because there was no mission whatsoever, even of trying to bring culture. Some other colonial powers had some cultural reasons also enmeshed. His was pure, let's take the country, let's take the people, let's squeeze out whatever we can from that country. And that's what he did. So that's the very, very bad association with Belgium and specifically Congo at the time called. But it also had an impact in terms of understanding how you can be a city open to the world, a merchant, and be open. And then if you have your human bad conditions, you can totally misuse it, and you instead of actually using it in a positive way, because it would have opened your mind and be part of a big world. So there was a very little association, which I now instantly made myself. But so my background is really, I am Jewish, and the reason why immediately this has an impact is because my parents both were deeply part of what happened to the Jewish people in the Holocaust. And I think a second generation, like people like me who were born after that and who had contact with their parents, each one, I think, takes their life stories and their life behavior out of it. So in my case, my mother was born in Holland, but the whole family in 1941 left Holland, and as refugees. My mother always said the moment she closed the door, she got the feeling of being a refugee. Just by closing the door, they ran through the whole Europe and managed to finally arrive actually in Switzerland in 1943. where my father was taken as in the work camp in 42. And that turned out to be his luck. Why? Because in 42 they had the Germans built what they call the Atlantic Wall. They took people to work in France. My father was there. He did not like exactly the environment, so he escaped. And when he came back in September, in the meantime, the Jews from Antwerp were all deported, including his mother, 2 sisters, and brother, who all went to Auschwitz. The only one who survived actually was his brother. But when my father came back, he decided to save hundreds and hundreds of people, Jewish, non-Jewish, whoever had to be saved. He risked his life every day. And that is the background I'm coming from, yes, which gives you as a human being immediately an impact of who you are and what you can learn from it, or what you can at least try to get inspired by. So that's a little bit my background.
Wow. There is rich history. That's why I like these interviews, Ed. And now I'm going to be calling you Edouard.
No, whatever you like.
Since I know how to say it. But that's a rich background, and that shaped the life you have led. When I met you, we immediately clicked, and we'll talk about Eva being your wife being in our program. But you are a son, just like you just described. You are a father, you're a grandfather, you're a businessman. You've got here through that long journey. Tell us about how you and Eva, your wife, met, and about your children and grandchildren. I've seen pictures of those smiling faces when we had spring break, gathered them in Israel, and how you ended up in Israel too.
Okay, so we'll try to give a little bit of background. Indeed, Israel is being Jewish in our prayers. Whether you're religious or not doesn't matter so much, but there's a prayer which is in all the prayers. It's always next year in Jerusalem. It's in every prayer. It's always has been something since 2,000 years ago. In 70 years AD, the Jews were Jerusalem was conquered by the Romans, and Jews were expelled to all over the world. It was always going back to Jerusalem. So I said, it's not possible for living a time of today. Everybody lives their time whenever they were born, and not be conscious of that time. So if we are talking about my generation, my wife's and me, Eva and me, being born just after 1948, when Israel was created, how can we ignore that fact? We have something which 2,000 years people were waiting for, and then when it happens, we don't even relate to that. That was not for us possible. Yes. So we said we have, whenever possible, we will move to Israel, which is our to be there. And then there is, again, when you have acts, there are consequences, and unintended, but in this case very intended consequence. I said, if we move to Israel, and Eva and I, we 100% aligned on that, we have a chance that our children, we were less than 40 years old when we did that. We have a chance that with our young children, which were between 6 and 16, we have 4 children, we will be able, they will be grounded in that way, because we will not come as people who are already 60 or years plus, and then they say, okay, let's move to another country. No, we will come when we're a young family, when we can still be impactful in our society, in our community, and to the world, but also from the other side, our children. And that's really what happens. So our 4 children who were born already, we moved to Israel, and they all are in Israel. All of them are married. All of them have children, and all of them we see very, very frequently. We build a house, a place for all of them. So it is definitely a central part of our life. And I remember when we talked in Harvard, sure in ALI, but also in business school where I graduated from, the Harvard Business School. It is about what is your purpose, and our first purpose is really creating that family, and around that friends, and around the community. But the core is first of all the family. And if you can create a family where everybody is happy with each other, not just your children to the parents or parents to the children, but also to the next generation, and also to the in-laws who are married to your children, and all of them can communicate together and love each other, then I think we have done already something in life. And that's, I have to say, we're blessed to have achieved that. So then to go backwards to our little history of a family, I met Eva when she and I both were students in Jerusalem. And we were just about 20 years old. Eva was making some artwork, and she was doing it with a thread. And she wove actually a tapestry, which if she continued doing that, she would have been a famous artist, because the trend since became very much in that direction. And I, although she was not my first girlfriend, I still had some issues with how do you pick up a girl like Eva. So I said, how do I do that? And I asked her, you know what, where did you buy that woolen thread to pick your tapestry? So I said, okay, he wants to know it, fine, I'll bring him to the place where I buy it. And that was the little thread with which we started our relationship, and which continued our whole life. And so that's that tapestry. We keep on knitting it together, and that is composed of our family, of our friends, old ones and new ones, community, all over the world. And that connects a little bit also to Harvard.
Wow. And that thread continues, Ed, because even before we met you, the way your wife Eva was talking about you, we were all excited to meet this man. And when I met you, definitely, you and Eva, good examples, all of us. Your love continues. A quick fact: I realized that you buy Eva flowers every single day.
Yes, I'm not sure if it's physically always happening, because she herself is an independent woman and knows herself to buy.
Exactly.
But flowers, flowers are interesting. Flowers are one way the most beautiful thing.
Yes.
But they're also very fragile, and you actually need to keep on buying them if you want to enjoy them. And actually, maybe that is a good metaphor for a happy marriage. You shouldn't take anything as granted. You have to continuously work on it and continuously harvest it and pressure it and give it pleasure.
Wow. So now we've talked about family. Thank you. And how many grandchildren? 4 children?
No, we have 14, and if I look at my watch, I don't think the 15th is born, but any minute can be born.
Oh my goodness, the 15th is coming. What a blessing. You touched a little bit about it. I want to go back. As a father, grandfather, traveler of the world, inventor, businessman, talk a little bit about your eye for business. You've started so many businesses. You've created a lot of different things on value add, starting from scratch. You went to Harvard Business School, but you didn't start a business at Harvard. You were already a businessman. You only went there to teach them how to do business.
So the interesting thing is, and I'll a little bit later in the conversation, actually, when I think about it, want also say we are not the same at age 20 than we are at age 30, than we are at 50 and more, as you surely do, especially about the third chapter, which we might touch upon. And, today, if you would say, and I'm going from the end and then I go to the beginning. If you would say to me, oh, Edward, you are a businessman, I would not especially be flattered, because for me today, I use business, and I continue to do business, but I use it more as a means to. And what can I And being in business helps you to, surely if you're an entrepreneur and come with new ideas, help you to be creative, innovative, but then to be able to execute. And that is important to whatever you do in your life. But it doesn't, if you ask me, my professional identity is not being a businessman today. But if you would have asked me this question more than 10 years ago, I would have definitely said yes. So it shows again a lesson I think that we all have to understand. There's evolved. Now, my first business, what I remember as a business person, was that in Belgium you have a coast, where in the coast they had kids they made like a pit in the in the sand, yeah. And they had flowers made from paper.
Okay.
Flowers, and we come back now to flowers. Actually, the connection of flowers, and then you sold them. So you have a beautiful flower in paper, and you ask for it a price. Now, with what do you pay that to your friends or people who come by? You pay it with they call it couteau. There's a special type of shell which has a special shape, and that shape you had to look for, and you paid with shells. And I remember a price of a smaller flower would be 30 shells, and a bigger one would be 80 shells. Okay, yeah. So now how do you obtain it? You have two ways to obtain it. One is you ask your mother, because we talk about kids of 5 years old, etc. You begged your mother to buy these beautiful paper, to cut it for you, to make beautiful flowers, and she would work, and she would make you the flowers for your flower shop, which you then would sell to friends, people coming by. Mm-hmm. The other way is that you would go on the beach and you would start looking for shells, and you would pick them up, but they are relatively rare. So to get 80 shells would probably take you a whole day just to find those shells.
Yes.
Now, I said to myself, I don't really want to bother my mother to find shells, to make these paper flowers. And I don't want to bother myself spending a whole day
at the beach.
At the beach finding these shells. So what did I do? I went to one of these flower shops, and I asked, can I please borrow a flower from you? And I'll show it to my mom, and if she likes it, I'll buy it. How much does it cost? Oh, this is for 50. Okay, I took the flower, trusted me. As a little boy, they must have given enough trust. I went to another shop, because these shops were like 100 meters from each other. And I said, do you want to buy it for 70? Oh, I sold it for 70. Then I made 20, and I gave them back 50. And that's how I started my business. And that was my solution, which I came when I was about 5 years old. Then there was another lesson which I got in the same environment. In this case, the place is called Knokke. They had at the big central place a U-shaped tables, really very big. We're talking about 50 feet each angle. Yes. Okay, and they were full of broken records, and it was called children place. You had to find, you got one half of a record, and you had to find your matching record. And if you found it, you got some paper prize, which allows you some plays for children, whatever. And what I did is I went with this in the morning. It took me a whole day. Almost the last broken record was a matching record for me.
Wow.
And so that lesson was, I surely had it, but it even reinforced, is endurance.
Exactly.
Nothing happens without endurance. Nothing just comes easy.
Yes.
So these were actually two lessons which surely formed me as a business person. It is, from one side, creativity. Being innovative, and of course being trustworthy, because you have to bring back that flower if you can't sell it, so people can trust you. And from the other side, endurance. When those 2 points meet together, then I think you have a basis to really succeed. And so I started with many different businesses in many different fields. I started with art, actually, because I studied law and art history, and I actually became like an art dealer at age less than 20. And I started getting art from different galleries, selling them in another country. And then I opened the art gallery, and then that art gallery was actually in the wrong place, in the wrong time, with the wrong concept. How is this all together? Because as an art dealer, I came from Israel to where I studied, to Belgium. I took art, and I managed in private circles to sell them very easily, actually, and make nice money. And it was in a close circle of people who started liking things, and I sold them easily. Then one of my clients said, "Oh, can we not open an art gallery?" I said, "Of course, we'll do it." But I didn't think strategically. So what happened is that when I opened my art gallery, which was a beautiful gallery and beautiful space with exhibitions, later what I found out that my original customers did not want to buy, because they said, this guy, when he was an art dealer, private dealer, he surely sold it at the best possible price. The moment he builds this beautiful environment of a gallery, he surely pays a lot for his insurance and for this and for that, and they stop buying. Then I closed it after a year and a half or something, because I said, okay, I'm not just sitting there waiting for customers to come. And then when I closed it, it took me about 2 weeks to sell everything out because, again, the mentality. So I was thinking, this was one of my first lessons. First, think, who is your customer?
Who is your customer? Yes.
So once you start understanding not just your creative thoughts, and once you start understanding that it's not just about endurance, but it's not about yourself, it's about who is your customer.
Exactly, yeah.
So this was my first business, and then I went into high tech and into art and into design, into fashion. Some things I did by myself, and some things we did, Eva and I did together. And so our whole life we sometimes did things together, then did things apart, but always in the best possible way of communication. And then whenever things succeeded more, fantastic. If they succeeded less, nothing dramatic, but less, there was never tension in our couple because we communicated. So even if we didn't do things together, I would never take a risk of major importance where Eva would not know about. And of course, if we do vice versa. So communication was one of our, again, basic building blocks.
Wonderful. Can you point out over many years of different businesses? You talked about the art gallery, but I know you also have those that have succeeded really and surprised you. So maybe an example, if you don't mind sharing, an example that one has really succeeded and went beyond what you expected, and one apart from the art gallery that you did and go, this one, I would not repeat it.
Yes.
So I would like our listeners to understand that you take a risk. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it might not. And especially young people who are listening and want to start businesses.
Of course. And so I think the first one is about when we then came, we were students, I built this art gallery in Belgium, which was the right place. And when it was not successful as I had hoped for, life takes over. So we really, my ambition at that time was I opened one art gallery and I'll open in other places in the world. But then we were in Belgium and we had already 2 kids, and then, life takes over. And 1 year became 15 years in Belgium where I did different things. And then in 1992, as I said, when we both were just under 40 years old, Eva and me, there's almost a 1 year difference, she's 1 year younger, we came to Israel, and in Israel, I just had, everything was open. I didn't have any specific thing what I wanted to do. And I met a person who was the founder of a very small company, which is known as SodaStream. which is sparkling water mainly with a device.
Yeah.
And he asked me if I wanted to set up the international business. It was at the time, it used to be an English company, which more or less was finished. But then in Israel, he was the importer. And in Israel at that time, people did not have money to really buy sparkling drinks or Coke or whatever, maybe once a week. So that was really financially very restricted. And that device solved a very good need. And I started from zero the international business, and I decided to bring this to Europe. The first country I chose was a small country, but the most difficult country more or less in Europe, because it has 4 different languages, a very, very rich country with very people who are very used to good life, and that was Switzerland. So I said, why start in a big country like France, in Europe, or Germany, or UK? Let me start with the most difficult country. And if I can succeed there, I can succeed everywhere. Like if I succeed in New York, I succeed everywhere. Here's the same. And it became unusual quick success. So that from the first year, we sold it very, very well in Switzerland. Then I moved to a wide distributor. It was a model which I devised, distributor model. It's a repeat business. So once you place a machine in the market, you have the refills of CO2, and that creates a business. And already the second year, I started in Austria and then in Germany. And in Germany, we sold after 1 year more than 1 million of these devices. And we already hit more than $100 million of sale. We're talking about 1994. So having a business, having had the privilege of starting a business from zero and moving up to $100 million of sale in a very, very short time, and seeing how that model develops really gave me the foundations for all basic businesses which I've been doing for the last 30 years. Because after that, I created another business, which I left that business in the year 2000, and that business was sold in about 3 years ago to PepsiCo for $3.2 billion, and it is very successful.
Very good.
So as I started then in 2000 to start thinking, how do I start my own business, which Eva joined almost immediately. And there was a business, I said, let's take the same concept of repeat business, where you have a device and then a follow-up from there. And I said, why is there a machine like an Nespresso, which makes coffee with capsules, and which is very, very successful, or in America, a company called Keurig Green Mountain, which has the same concept. And why do this only for coffee? Why not create a device which have capsules with the concentrate of all the soft drinks? Because soft drinks are basically a concentrate, Pepsi or Coke, and then you add the bottlers, and bottlers will cost $20, $30, $40 million to establish, who add just water to it, then sometimes sugar or some other sweeteners. Then they put it in a bottle. These bottles are being all over, tracked all over the place, huge environmental impact. Why not do this all having the concentrate in the capsule and let the machine serve the hot, cold, sparkling, filtered water and do it? And that idea was, I think, pretty powerful. The execution was very, very complex, and the research and development team, which we have assembled, it took us almost 10 years. Therefore, we come back to endurance, with very serious investments, but with very, very serious partners. And we sold that company to Keurig Green Mountain. Now, here is something, I think, one of the lessons. How do you move your business, which you start without really funds by yourself? How do you attract funds? And how do you attract big players? And it becomes like one brings the other. We early on got as a shareholder PepsiCo, because PepsiCo got impressed by what we were doing, but it was still a prototype, and then we made the first machines. And by saying, I'm not competing with PepsiCo, I cannot compete with this giant, I will never compete. But if I find my little circle where really we have something which is so unique, then so we got PepsiCo to not only invest, not only to give us also the brands, Pepsi and 7-Up, etc., but we also actually got them as distributor. Now, one attracts the other. Then other companies started being attracted, like Keurig Mountain became a shareholder first in our company, and like others, and like Whirlpool became one of our partners. So suddenly, from being this little very, very tiny company, we became in the center of these huge companies. Actually, Coca-Cola also was interested in very much in us. And so at a certain point, then you come, are you going to keep being in the market? Or are you actually going, if you get an offer which is difficult to refuse, then you take that offer. In that case, we got an offer, and all these companies were interested actually to buying it at the end. But we sold to Keurig Mountain. And then a year later, I started with our son Ariel, who was already business development in a previous company, Bevis, another company in 2015, 16, which is the same concept again in terms of a machine and a repeat business, and that's called Blix. So it's myblix.com, and that is a machine which, again, a system which makes you healthy smoothies, soups, sauces, and everything, but without any preparation and no cleanup. So it's like a Keurig or Nespresso, but the customer never needs to do any preparation with healthy foods. And what we do is impact. And here we start moving a little bit from business to impact, because I said, hey, I would be interested to be involved in businesses if they also don't have impact. And the impact here in this case is people's life is too short. They don't want to spend time on preparing healthy food. So what they do, they eat not so healthy food. We say, hey, we want to cross the way where you can both do things so you can live your life and not spend the time on just preparing and cleaning up. And from the other side, how do we provide them something which is providing them the health benefits? And that's what we're doing now. And that's one of my 3 buckets, which keep me very, very busy, is that business, which is now getting accelerated, launched in the market.
Wow, you answered several questions within that. This repeat, but for the people who are listening to us, especially my young people in Uganda, you talked about 3 concepts: trustworthy, creativity, determination, not giving up. And in each of the businesses you've started and sold, or started and still run, you still have that. The last thing I would, you touched on it, we are going back on your 3rd chapter. Your wife, Eva, is in a program with me, Advanced Leadership Initiative. Many people decided to come with their wives or their husbands or significant others. You didn't enroll to participate in the program. Why didn't you join us?
So to come back to our family relationships, one with Eva and me, we are never jealous of each other for nothing. We only wish the best for each other. Yes. But on one thing, I'm jealous. I'm jealous that she's in the program and I'm not, because I would have loved to be in the program. The reason why I'm not is exactly because I'm at a moment, and that is again one of the lessons in life, when you started your own initiatives, businesses, you really have to do one after the other. You can't just do 2, 3 things in the same time. It's total focus, and in order to be able to succeed, you only focus on one thing, you build it up. Now, the advantage you have when you've done this a few times, that you can start actually doing more than one thing. and then all your life experiences start interconnecting with what you have done your whole life, and it enables you to do more than one thing. And that is, in my life, all the things I've done in my life come to somehow enabling me to do one business, which is this Blix, which is the field I've been doing for 30 years. From the other side, I started 2 years ago, art platform, Shifting Vision, which is becoming, which is bringing creative production with artists all over the world around some central themes. And that's taking off quite, I think, on a global level. And the third one is our very environmentally friendly developments, which we do in Crete and Greece. So what happens is, because these three buckets, one is business with impact, which is Blix. One is not really business, but more impact in the world, which is the world of art, how art is a bridge, which is Shifting Vision, and Crete, which is environment and some business also. Doing these three things and being fully immersed in them and leading them did not allow me to just disconnect for a year. And I thought that I didn't want to create extra stress by being there and not being there at the same time, which is a major problem for all people in ALI, because all people in ALI have been super successful and super active, and to disconnect at least partly for a year is very, very difficult. Eva, in her case, as when we sold our previous business, Bevis, to Keurig, she already clearly did not want to continue to be involved in business. So she started opening her own NGO, which is Comeback for helping returning citizens into society. And therefore she could do it, and she is growing with all the means which are there. So I have, an advantage that by getting at least, because it's a one-year program, I get at least to go into some classes, but even more importantly, I get to know the whole cohort, like you, for example. So I do actually am myself impacted from that. So to talk about the third chapter, which was the first class more or less I joined, which was with Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot, who wrote that chapter, that influenced me immediately by thinking, how do we really associate ourselves with a certain period in our life where we really rebalance in a certain way.
Edouard, time comes and you are not here any longer. How do you want to be remembered?
Okay, let's say I think that because I was involved even in technology, I always think about Steve Jobs saying, making a little dent in the universe. I would have wanted to be about having done a little good dent in the universe. That is really, and that starts always with your own direct family, but it goes to the universe. And universe, we talk the whole world, and that is why you doing things which have some impact, and you're not responsible to see how that impact really, like a pebble you throw in the water. You have to make it to make these circles. You're not responsible how far these circles go necessarily during your life, but you're at least responsible to have some impact. So having a little dent in the universe, that would be already good.
Is there something I didn't ask you that you would like to share before we close?
We talked also about something which is like, what is my way of life's mission, or more, how do I want to, what I think of most.
Your mantra.
Is one is absolutely live and let live, and life is too short. So therefore, go into your relationships with people all over the world, especially, and that is what you're doing so fantastic, Jackson, is trying to not to teach the next generation what to do, but let them try at least to be able to source of something what they can get mentored by or can be influenced by, and they will do it in their own way, because no generation has to do what the previous generation is, and no one person needs to do what the other person does. But it's all about, if we just concentrate on what unites us and not what separates us, I think this is absolutely the most essential part for all of us.
That's wonderful. Thank you for making time. Please tell Eva I said hello, and soon and very soon we'll visit you in Israel. We'll go
Absolutely.
to Greece.
And bring some of your Uganda people with.
Yes, we'll bring Ugandans to Harvard, but we also host you in our home in Uganda. That concludes our conversation. To be continued. We are still connected, and now we are connected for life. Your home is our home. Our home is your home. You are always welcome. Thank you for tuning in. To be continued. The best is yet to come.